Hello everybody and happy Friday. I am not showing myself because I look like hell right now, even more than usual. I know that I do show myself when I look like hell, but I don't feel like it right now. But today I am going to show you how to turn these ingredients right here into homemade Zuppa Toscana that tastes very much like the one that my family loves to get at the Olive Garden. Okay, so I have the ingredients prepped. I have kale. I have a bag of like chopped pre-washed kale, but I also had a bunch of kale that I chopped up myself. I do put a lot of kale in mine. I'll get to that in a minute. I have some organic chicken stock. I have heavy cream, crushed red peppers, sliced potatoes, and spicy Italian sausage. And I have it in two balls, like this is a half pound and then this is a half pound because I'm going to do two batches. And the way that I do the zuppa is we use the sausage basically as a seasoning and kind of like the oil. And then we load it with lots and lots of kale and a pretty good amount of the potatoes. But it's kind of a do it how you want to do it recipe. You need just all these ingredients. Like if you like it to be super creamy, you can use extra cream. Olive Garden's version is kind of light on the cream and it's heavy on the broth. So you do get a good bit of like chunks in there with the sausage and the potatoes and the kale. But we like to do ours just a little bit chunkier. And I have two pots here, and I also like to make ours a lot spicier than what they use, so I put in more crushed red pepper. There's no salt, pepper, or anything. This is literally it, and it makes a super flavorful and super delicious homemade version of the Zuppa Toscana. So that's all the ingredients, and like I said, you can use chicken broth, chicken stock. If you wanted to really amp it up and go for extra protein, you could probably use bone broth. Like that would make a really good zuppa too. So there's ways of tweaking it to your own taste, but these are the simple ingredients that we use in ours. So right now all I'm doing is just getting the meat brown. Once all this sausage is brown, I'm not going to drain it or anything. I'm just going to leave the grease and everything in the pot because usually there's not a lot. I mean, if there was an excessive amount of grease from the sausage, I would take it out, but and I use Italian turkey sausage a lot, so it's usually really low fat. This stuff is doing pretty good, but I like to leave a little bit of the sausage grease in there because number one, I'm not afraid of fat, and it gives it extra flavor. It's just extra flavor for the soup. Okay, now that the sausage is about browned, I'm gonna add in some red pepper flakes to mix directly into the meat to kind of ramp up the spiciness. The sausage actually isn't very spicy at all. And like I said, we like our zuppa to be pretty zippy. So you need the red pepper flakes, like no matter how spicy you like it, because they provide a good bit of the flavors. But you can control it so that it's not actually spicy. We like ours to actually have some zip to it. And I like our particular version of it, we like to not have like big chunks of sausage in every bite. Our focus is the flavor of the broth and the kale and the potatoes. Like those are the heroes of our dish. So the sausage is just more of a seasoning. It's not really the star. The broth is eventually going to be the star, but we like the extra kale. I love having extra kale in it. It's good for everybody and everybody likes it. So that's the way we do it. So there's the first step. Okay, so now I've added in 1 box each of the chicken stock to each pan. And I only do one at a time because I like to start putting the ingredients in, but I want to make sure that there's some chicken stock in so that the sausage doesn't start to burn. Okay, I've got some potatoes in each pan here. No need to like chop them up or anything. Slices are fine because they break up as they cook, as they get soft. So yeah, so like I said, I don't use a recipe. I don't measure quantities. I'm just kind of doing it by feel, and I do it like that every time. You can see that the stock is kind of red because of all the seasonings from the juice in there, which is awesome. And then I'm gonna put in Now the kale, once I get everything in, I'm gonna literally top each pot with kale all the way to the top, because the kale does, you know, wilt down and shrink a lot and everything. But like I said, we like to have a lot of kale in our soup because it's super healthy and super delicious. So I've got my first little batch of kale like completely in the pot, so I used all that from the bunch that I cooked. And oh, I keep covering the lens with my fingers, I'm sorry. So this is the beginnings of all of the ingredients coming together. And now I'm gonna add more red pepper flakes and more chicken stock to each one, and then I'm gonna keep adding potatoes and kale until basically until the stock is gone and it just covers the food completely. Okay, so now I've added like all the rest of the potatoes and I've added all the broth that I have. I actually use a lot. Like I said, these are really big pots of soup. I have these are 8 small potatoes that I sliced between the 2 pots. So there's like 4 potatoes in each. I used that bunch of kale, and then I'm going to go to the bag here in a second. I used 3 boxes of the chicken stock in each pot. See, like this one is really, really full, so it's not going to get quite as much kale as the other one. However, it's not going to boil over the way I do it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the cream. I don't, like I said, I don't measure anything. I just do it by feel and how much I feel like putting in. And, oh, I got to open the cream. So now, like the cream, it just depends on how creamy you like it. I usually start with, about that much. Just pour some in because I know that we like it a little bit creamy, and then it gives it that, God, I keep covering the lens with my finger, I'm so sorry. And then it gives it that nice kind of buttery color in the broth. So, and then you can kind of see the red pepper flakes floating on the top, like that's gonna be good enough for us. So now it's pretty full and it's pretty chunky and everything, but like I said, we are kale eaters. So I pack the heck out of this soup with kale because it's nutritious, it's delicious, and I like to make it more of a heartier meal, like so that it's actually a whole meal rather than a side of something. But we put lots of kale in it, so I'm gonna do that really quick. Okay, and now the pots are packed with kale, and I'll stir it in a little bit, but usually I just kind of push it down because as it boils, it's going to fall down and make it stirrable. I did test the sausage and it wasn't spicy at all, so I went ahead and I sprinkled in a little bit more of the red pepper flakes, but I know it's going to be good. So I'm really just kind of pushing it down into the broth because the volume in this kale is going to shrink considerably as it cooks, so don't really need to worry about that. So then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring them to a boil. And once they're at a boil, I'm going to reduce them both to a simmer and then let them cook on the stove uncovered for about an hour or until the potatoes are tender. And I'm sorry, I realized I said cook it uncovered. I mean bring it to a boil uncovered, and then when I lower the heat to get it simmering, I'll cover it then. Okay, so they've been cooking with the tops on for about a half an hour. And now I am going to remove the lids. I have my burner turned down to super low, and I'm going to let them simmer like this for probably another half an hour or so. Because I actually had it up a little bit too high with the lid on, and when I took the lid off to check it, they were like at a rolling boil, and that's not what I wanted for them. I wanted them to be simmering. So I'm going to let them cook with the tops off for a little bit of while. And I'm thinking about adding a little bit more cream to each one also. You gotta be careful when you add the cream because if the water's too hot when you add it, it can kind of curdle. So try to make sure that you add as much as you want at the very beginning. So there are ways of making this leaner. You can use half and half ground turkey with Italian sausage. which are all things that I've done in the past. I've rinsed the meat to make sure there isn't any extra fat on it. So you can make lean versions of this. I've made it without the potatoes, so there aren't any carbs in it. So lots of different ways, but so this is the richer, fattier version, which Simon definitely needs because that kid is too skinny right now. But anyway, this is the full fat version, and it's gonna be ready very, very soon. There is the finished product. So it actually turned out really spicy. I don't know, maybe just like the sausage had more spice in it. I know I put in a lot of red pepper flakes. A lot of people are gonna be like, oh my god, that's an obscene amount of red pepper flakes, but I usually do use a lot. It's just the sausage actually turned out to be a lot spicier once it cooked down than I was expecting it to be. So this one is really spicy. To me, it's like delicious spicy, but it might be too spicy to some other people. Of course, like I said, we'll eat spicy foods in my house. And of course, if I was making it for somebody else, I would definitely take their taste into account. I wouldn't try to burn anybody's mouth, but hopefully it won't be too spicy because it did turn out a little bit spicier than I expected it to. But it looks delicious, it smells delicious, and the sip of broth that I took out of it looks good. And I'm going to give this bowl to Zachary because he needs to eat some soup. Okay, Zachary's going in.
Definitely more spicy than you usually do. Pretty good. A big old potato piece. Pretty good.
Still good though?
Yeah.
It is a little bit spicier than I usually do. It's good though. Clear your sinuses. Yum. Soup is a success.
Yeah.
Now you all know how to make your own version of Italian or Zuppa Toscana Olive Garden style at home.
So are you rolling?
Uh-huh.
Hello everybody, I just woke up. I am spinning in my brain, but I am going to eat the crap out of this delicious soup. It is awesome, it's the best. She makes it as just as much as I like it. And this is my lunch.
Can't understand. Okay. So this is a Zuppa Toscana vlog. So say something about that.
Okay. So this soup is freaking delicious.
There you go.